Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
You knew it wasn't right. You felt it in small moments. The quiet disappointment, the way your body tightened, the conversations that never went deeper, but you stayed. And maybe you rushed in because being chosen felt safer than being alone. Today we're talking about the fear underneath both. The fear of being alone, and how that fear quietly shapes who you choose and what you tolerate. Hi, I'm back to another key to soul progress, and today the key is inner sufficiency. We're gently continuing our love rewritten journey. We've talked about rewriting patterns, sacred boundaries, overcoming receiving, and triggers. Now we're going deeper into the decision underneath so many relationship choices. The fear of being alone, not just physical alone, but emotionally alone, unchosen, unpartnered, unattached, without someone beside you, or even sometimes when someone's beside you, you feel this sense of being alone. And here's what we're going to explore deeper into in this episode. Why this fear causes women to stay too long, settle too fast, ignore misalignments, rationalize red flags, and silence their intuition, and how inner sufficiency changes everything. The fear of being alone shows up in two different ways. One is staying too long. Two is settling too fast. They look different, but they are driven by the same root. Let's define them clearly. So staying too long sounds like it's not that bad. Maybe I'm expecting too much. We've invested so much already. Or what if I don't find anyone better? And settling too fast sounds like he's interested. That's enough. I don't want to start over. At least I won't be alone. I can grow to love him. Both are attempts to escape uncertainty. And here's the spiritual layer. When you don't feel inwardly whole, you try to secure externally what must be built internally. That's not weakness, that's human. But the soul calls you higher, to a new level. The soul that is united to the Christ is always moving you to a new standard of being. Imagine this. You've been walking in the desert. You're thirsty, you're tired, you want relief. Then you see something that looks like water. And if you're desperate enough, you won't check if it's a mirage. Fear of being alone is thirst. And sometimes thirst makes us mistake compatibility for chemistry, stability for destiny, attention for alignment. Inner sufficiency is not pretending you don't want water. It's knowing you are not dying without it. That changes how you approach the oasis. Let me give you an example. More concrete. Let's take Michelle, who had been dating Daniel for 4 years. Daniel wasn't cruel. He wasn't abusive. He just wasn't aligned. He had different values, different drive of what motivated him, different depth of communication and wanting to explore in a relationship. Every year, Michelle thought, maybe I'll shift. Maybe it'll shift. But something inside her stayed unsettled. Her friends would gently ask, "Are you happy?" And Michelle would say, "It's fine." But fine is often fear in disguise. What Michelle didn't want to admit was this. She was afraid that leaving meant starting over at 42. Afraid she had missed her window. Afraid she wouldn't meet someone else. And one night after another circular argument, Michelle sat in silence and felt a deep truth arise. I'm not staying because this is right. I'm staying because I'm afraid. That was the turning point. She didn't leave dramatically. She didn't blame him. She chose alignment over fear. And yes, it was lonely for a while, but something surprisingly happened. Her anxiety decreased, her clarity increased, her self-trust strengthened. So Michelle learned courage, because staying out of fear weakens the soul. Choosing alignment strengthens inner authority. And there is a spiritual principle. Everything moves in cycles. Some relationships are for growth. Some are for companionship. Some are for awakening. Some are seasonal. Not all are permanent. And sometimes we as women get into this notion that it needs to be permanent. But that's not the truth of what relationships, what growth is, what the soul is needing in order to evolve and grow and move to a greater understanding of that self-awareness of who you are as a person. And you get that through the different experiences you go through. When fear of being alone is the driver for you, you try to turn seasons into lifetimes. Think about that. Sometimes things have their cycle. Some things have their season then. And you're trying to force something. You're trying to force this whole thing of the relationship. You're trying to force the relationship into lifetimes. And it may be just for a season to grow, your soul to grow, for the other person's soul to grow. So remember this. Inner sufficiency allows you to say, this chapter may be complete without collapsing. Not feeling that you're going to collapse or you're going to lose it or you're not going to be able to move on from the experience. I'm not going to say that it doesn't hurt. But I am saying is at a soul level, and your soul is trying to gently help you to understand there's something not right here. Every time I've tried something, it seems to land flat. When I want to talk and have a deeper conversation, it lands flat. When I want romance, it seems to go flat. When I want to be able to talk about my day and how things went on that day, he doesn't want to listen. It goes flat. So now let's look at the other side. Elisa had been single for 3 years. She was tired of watching friends get engaged, tired of family asking questions, tired of explaining why she was still alone. Then she met Marcus. He was kind, available, ready. But Elisa felt something subtle, a lack of intellectual connection, a lack of depth. But she told herself, depth is overrated. He's nice, and that's what matters. At least he chooses me. Within 6 months, she was committed. Within a year, she felt trapped. She hadn't chosen from resonance. She chose from relief. Relief is not the same as resonance. We have to be aware of this. Just because we feel relief, it doesn't mean there's resonance in the relationship. Eventually, she had to admit, I rushed because I didn't want to be alone. And Elisa learned discernment, because choosing from fear, these clouds that cloud our judgment, cloud our ability to see things really clearly, but choosing from wholeness clarifies compatibility. So we either have cloudy perceptions by the basis of the origins of what we're choosing, if we're in that point of fear, or if we're in a point of discernment and being centered and balanced in ourselves, then we're choosing from wholeness, which clarifies compatibility. Imagine your identity is a boat. If you don't have an anchor internally, you'll tie yourself to the nearest dock. Not because it's the right harbor, but because drifting feels scary. Inner sufficiency is becoming your own anchor. Inner sufficiency is knowing my sufficiency is in the Lord, in the Christ, in the Atman, the I am presence, the higher aspects of who you are, and being able to sit in that sufficiency. If inner sufficiency is becoming your own anchor, then you choose docking points, not clinging to them. You make conscious, intentional choices. You go into a situation with your eyes open and willing to see things as they are, not as you would want them to be. Let's take Elena. Had a pattern of serial relationships. She rarely spent more than 2 months single. One day she asked herself honestly, why am I avoiding in the space between relationships? Why am I quickly getting involved to the next relationship? The answer surprised her. Silence, stillness, facing herself, not being admired, not being desired. So Elena made a radical choice. She would stay single for 6 months intentionally. Not closed, not bitter, just intentional. The first few weeks were uncomfortable, very unbearable. To her surprise, she felt restless. She checked her phone more than usual, but slowly something shifted. As time kept on moving by and tolerating the uncomfortability, she began investing in friendships, deepening her spiritual practice, discovering preferences she had ignored, enjoying solitude. And as she enjoyed it, she realized her inner self could be able to speak to her, guide her, help her to be involved in hobbies, reading more spiritual literature, doing more devotional types of activities. And by month 4, she realized, I don't feel desperate anymore. Wow. She realized, I don't feel the need to have to. That have to can move us into desperation. And that changed the quality of who she attracted. And what she learned at a soul level, and then learned inner sufficiency. Because when you are anchored in your own fullness, you no longer choose from fear. you choose from clarity. And clarity is something we all can master. We can all gain greater amounts of clarity by the questions we ask, by working on ourselves and gaining that self-awareness of what happens to us in relationships. How do we become small? Or how do we expand ourselves to be balanced? What we do need to do to work on ourselves so we can attract the right person to us. And this is the law of attraction, that we, depending on who we are, how we've mastered certain things in our lives, we tend to attract certain experiences to us to help us to continue to grow and advance. And so the same types of neediness sometimes that we have as women, we attract the same or something similar in another person. Our inner need may move us into being dependent, but we may attract someone who's externally dependent upon us. We have to look at these patterns, and when we're willing to look at them, we grow from them. Our soul advances from those patterns in our everyday life, not just in our personal relationships, but they can also be in our work relationships, that we attract certain people at work. And what is that about? But right now, we're talking about our personal relationships. I want to get back to this inner sufficiency and what it actually means and what it doesn't mean. So let's talk about what it doesn't mean first. Inner sufficiency does not mean you don't want a partnership. You don't want someone in your life. And it doesn't mean that you don't feel lonely sometimes. And when you're thinking about developing and cultivating this quality of inner sufficiency, it doesn't mean you are hyper independent. It doesn't mean any of that. Self-sufficiency is a quality, and it means, I would say, I can be alone without feeling abandoned. I can be alone and know that God is my sufficiency. That there is something, and when I feel alone, I can feel that with the awareness that in all things, God is. And if God is in all things, God is within me. And if God is within me, He is my sufficiency. It's like, though I walk through the shadows of death, I will always be with you. We have to realize God is always with us. We take our eye off the prize, which is God's sufficiency, with God's abundance in our life. We look for it everywhere else instead of looking at it and building it and being aware of the sufficiency coming from within. That is power. Spiritually, this is alignment with the presence within. And when you know you are not spiritually alone, physical solitude stops feeling like extinction, as if it's going to be the most painful thing that could happen to you to be alone. You're developing other muscles. You're developing the soul and the awareness that I don't have to push things. I don't have to drive things to be a part of a relationship. I don't have to control things. I don't have to be the people pleaser in order to stay in the relationship. It is teaching you that it is not these external things that I need to attend to. It is the internal awareness, the internal anchoring in sufficiency, and some of the other soul qualities we've been talking about in this series on soul progress. So when you know you are not spiritually alone, physical solitude, emotional solitude, mental solitude stops feeling like extinction. And from that place, you choose partnership as enrichment, not rescue. It's enriching who you are. It is helping to expand who you are. It is not trying to fill an empty cup. Your cup is already full. So what can I do? What can I say? How can I be to begin to develop this inner sufficiency. 1, always ask the fear question. You can ask, am I staying because it's aligned or because I'm afraid? Always ask yourself why I'm in this relationship. Is it aligned with who I am, my values, what is important to me, my goals, my communication, and how I want that communication to be? Or is it out of fear? Because I'm afraid. Think about this. Maybe it's good to have a 30-day clarity pause. If unsure about the relationship decision, give yourself 30 days of intentional observation, not emotional reaction. Observe the relationship. Observe what is happening in your communication. Observe the values that you have and that your partner has. Observe what's happening to you. And if you're not in a relationship, start working on the 30-day clarity about what you want in a relationship and what you've had in the past and what that means for you. And 3 is the solitude practice. Schedule 1 evening a week alone, intentionally, whether you're in a relationship or not, but you're doing this intentionally to not create distractions for yourself and keep busy. We can still, if we're not in a relationship, create distractions for ourselves. It's a busy work. Just what you're trying to do is journal, reflect, create stillness, and see what that's like for you. Notice what surfaces. You are building tolerance for your own company. You're building that tolerance that we need to have to know I can be with myself. I can enjoy myself. I can be inspired by my higher wisdom that comes, the inner sage that Christ, Jesus Christ, or your I am presence, or the understanding that internally there is a world that exists within you that can be tapped into. That is strength. The fear of being alone is not shameful. We all have different types of fears, and they're not shameful. But if you don't examine it, as we're talking about today, it will quietly write your love story for you. An inner sufficiency is not about isolation. It's about alignment. And when you are anchored within, you stop settling. You stop staying out of fear. You stop pushing for something to happen. You stop rushing out of panic, anxiety, uncertainty. And love becomes choice, not escape. But before we close, ask yourself this question. Where has fear of being alone influenced my decisions? Share your reflections in the comments. I would love to hear. And what you've done about it may help another woman find clarity and a sense that we're not alone in these fears. But we certainly do need to learn how to be able to master those fears and gain clarity, which allows the soul to continue to evolve and grow. Something to think about. Bye for now. And you can find my podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.